In this video, I'm going to show you how to attach trim to the bottom of your hem. This can be done to the bottom of pants, shorts, or skirts. In this particular case, I'm going to be using lace and ribbon. So let's get started. Before we start attaching trim to the bottom of our garment, we need to hem it. So I have my garment here, inside out. My right side is on the inside. And it's a good idea to try on your garment before you start hemming it so you can see how far you want to actually hem it. I'm going to do a narrow one because I'm doing shorty pants here, so the length doesn't really matter since it's going to be a short pair of pants anyways, and then the lace that I'm attaching to the bottom is going to extend it just a little bit. So I'm just going to hem it up 5/8 of an inch. I'm just going to use my little sewing gauge here to measure up 5/8 of an inch, and I use the slider to help me. Just butt it up with the fold and see if it lines up here with the raw edge, and it does. So then I'm going to stick a pin in it. And I'm going to do this all the way around the pant leg here. And this would be the same technique if you were doing shorts or if you were doing a skirt. It's the same exact thing. After I finish measuring this and pinning it, I'm then going to take it to my iron and I'm going to press it because I want to make sure this fold right here is a nice crisp fold. And that's what the iron does. It's very good for making things looking clean. So I'm just going to finish this and then we move on to the next step. I finished pressing along the bottom of my hem, and now to continue, what I'm going to do is I want to tuck in the raw edge that goes along the top here. So in order to form a narrow hem, I'm going to take this and I'm going to tuck it to where it hits my fold line here. So I'm tucking it inside, right to the crease. And then putting the pin back in. So this is nice because you don't have to worry about doing any measuring or anything like that. You just want to be careful and make sure that you get it even. And you might be doing a little bit more pins just because the fold kind of tends to want to come out sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and do this all the way around again. And then I'm going to press it for a second time. And then the next step after this is to sew this down. I'm going to go ahead and start sewing my hem here, and I took off my arm extension so it's a little bit easier for me to sew all the way around the pant leg because I'm able to just slip it right onto my base here. So before we get started, we're going to sew right along this inner edge here, right along the fold. And be careful not to go over to the other side. We want to make sure our hem is nicely secured to the inside of our pant leg here, or to your skirt or whatever you're making. So I'm just going to go ahead and start, and you're just doing a regular stitch, and you can do a back stitch, or when you come all the way around again, just be sure to go over the stitch in front. And you want to try to make it as even as possible, so you need to follow a guide to make sure you're sewing straight because you don't want your stitches to look crooked on the right side of your pants. Now in this particular case we're going to be covering it up with a ribbon, but still I always like to make sure everything is neat and even. So I'm just going to go all the way around, and then the next part, the fun part, is we're going to start adding our trim to the bottom of this garment. Now that I have my hem sewn up, I'm now going to start attaching my lace to the bottom of the hem. And this is going to be sewn on to the inside of the pant leg. So my pant leg is still wrong side out. Here's my inner leg seam right here. And I'm going to start there just because it's on the inside of the leg. And if it's a skirt, I guess it doesn't really matter. I would just start at a side seam then. So what's going to happen is that I'm going to attach the lace to the inside of my pant leg with a 1/2 inch from the bottom of my hem to the top of my lace here. So once I pin this, what you're going to see on the right side is going to look like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure. I have a 1/2 inch marked on my sewing gauge, and I'm just going to bump it right up against. I can feel the fold of my pant leg here. I'm just going to check it and make sure that it's a 1/2 inch of lace that's overlapping it, and then I'm going to stick a pin to hold it. And I'm just going to do this all the way around. Now the only thing I want to make note of, because it's pretty easy and self-explanatory, so it doesn't really take a lot of explanation. But what you're going to do when you get back down to the other end, and let's say I'm already at that point. So let's say this is the end of my lace, and now I'm coming to where the lace meets. I'm going to take my original piece that I started with, and I'm going to fold it over on top of itself, and then stitch the new side of my lace right over on top of it. Just line it up to make sure it's even. So on this side, you're going to have a fold mark, but it's going to be a nice even fold mark instead of a raw edge of the lace. So that's why you do that. So again, all you do is just fold over the original piece that you first laid down, and then you take the other side and you lay it right on top of it so that the raw edge is now behind it. So when you flip it over to the right side, you have the nice clean fold line instead of the raw edge of the lace. So I'm going to go ahead and finish pinning this, and then what we're going to do once the lace is all pinned is we're going to baste the lace onto the bottom of the pant leg. So I'm going to go ahead and start basting this, and my directions want me to baste close to the lower edge of my fold line, which is right here. So you could either flip it over so you know where that is on the other side and just move your pins, but I'm not going to go through all that. So all I'm doing is knowing that once I find my fold line, that the edge of my lace is going to go right along the edge of my foot here. So that's how I'm going to keep track of it. But it's just basically to tack on the lace, so you don't have to do any back stitch or anything like that. If you were not putting a ribbon on the right side, then you probably would want to do a regular stitch because there's no more steps and you want to make sure that the lace stays on. I'm putting a ribbon which will cover the stitch marks, therefore reinforcing the lace as it's sewn onto the inside of the hem. So therefore all I need to do is just tack it on with a basting stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and finish going all the way around. And then I'm going to move on to the ribbon part, which lays on top of the outside hemline. I flipped my pants right side out now. So this is the right side of my garment. You can see the lace now is underneath my hem there. So that's how that's going to look. Now to finish this off, I'm going to cover my stitches right here with some ribbon, and the ribbon's going to run right alongside the bottom. So you have your fabric, your ribbon. You don't really see much of your fabric underneath here, so it's not like this is like this. We're covering it all the way up to the bottom, and then we have our lace layer right here. So in this particular case, one end of the ribbon, we'll start at the inner side seam again for the pants. It's going to be folded under. So I have this on the underneath side of the ribbon, and that's going to be like that. And I'm just going to pin it all the way around, and then when I get to the other side, grab the other side of my ribbon, it's also going to be folded under just as the first one was, and then just slightly overlapped like this, just a little neater. You want it to be folded perfectly in half so it lines up, and so it'll look like something like this, and then we'll slip stitch it. But the thing is, we're going to be sewing both on the bottom of the ribbon and then on the top part of the ribbon. So it's going to be secured on both sides, so there's no I mean, if we just sewed it on one end, then this could flip open or it could flip up or something like that. So we're going to do it on top and bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and start pinning this, and then we're going to go ahead and stitch it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start sewing this. I'm going to start on the bottom part of my ribbon first, and so right along the edge, and I'm just doing a regular stitch. And maybe one back stitch here. And just as I did with the lace, I'm just going to go all the way around and just make sure to keep this as even as possible. And then once I come all the way back around again, I'm going to do another back stitch just to make sure that this ribbon is secured. And then I'm going to start doing the top half of my ribbon. I finished sewing the bottom part. I'm just finishing up sewing my top portion now. I'm coming to the end here. And we're almost done adding trim to the bottom of our hem. Sometimes when I'm going through, this top half kind of gets caught under my foot. So what I like to do is when I start getting close, I'll put the needle down, lift the foot up, and then just push it under, just so it rides a little easier. Okay, so I got to the end of my stitch, and I'm just going to do a couple back stitches. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I mean, it's pretty secure now, but right where the ribbon overlaps, right here, I'm just gonna quickly slip stitch that closed, so there's nothing that can get caught under there or anything like that. And then we're pretty much done. I'm gonna go ahead and start my slip stitch. I just have a knotted threaded needle, and basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go from underneath my ribbon here on the edge, bring it up through the front. So I did it on one side, and now I'm just gonna grab a little bit, move this, with my other side. So originally I started with this ribbon behind. Now I'm just grabbing a little bit of the ribbon that overlaps the bottom ribbon. And I'm just doing it right alongside my fold here. I'm going to pull it through, and then I'm going to grab a little bit of this bottom ribbon right along the edge next to the fold, and grab a little bit of my folded ribbon again. I'm basically just going back and forth between the two. And I'm going to do this for the whole length, and it doesn't take very long. It's not a very big area. Once I get to the end of the ribbon, I'm going to tie a knot, and then I'm going to do the same thing for my lace trim down here as well, just to keep those folded edges together. And after that's complete and you knot it and cut it off, then you're finished with this part of your project. So here's the final product. We have the lace underneath the hem, and we have the ribbon that sits on top of the hem. And here is the other pant leg, so you can see the difference between just a plain hem and then one that we styled with the lace and the ribbon. So I mean, it's just something that's optional that you can do with your project. It kind of jazzes it up a little bit and makes it a little bit more unique, and it's also kind of fun to do. So it's really up to you on if you want to do that. But that's how you do a trim.
Our book, Professor Pincushion's Beginner Guide to Sewing, Garment Making for Nervous Newbies, is now available to order. Go to professorpincushion.com/books or click on the link in the description to see a list of vendors where you can purchase it.